Hello everyone. I'd just like to take a second and thank everyone for pushing through to get these videos uploaded even though we're nearing the end of finals and the holidays. That being said, let's get into the debate. We are arguing whether or not commercial value is an inadequate way of evaluating cultural goods. First, I'd like to start off by talking about our burden for this round. While the affirmative team says that it's our burden to prove that we can only use commercial value to ever prove the worth of a cultural good, this is false. We can see by looking at the resolution that our team's burden in today's round is only to prove that commercial value can be used every now and then in certain situations to evaluate how much worth a cultural good has. So as long as you can see that sometimes commercial value can be used to evaluate a cultural good, then we should win today's round because we've upheld our burden. However, the negative team's burden is to prove that commercial value can never be used to evaluate a cultural good. So if they say that even in some circumstances it can be proven, then they should lose the round. So let's get into some of the arguments that the affirmative team's making about what we should use to evaluate cultural goods. And we're going to talk about three big things they brought up in their speech. First, about public value and the way we value public goods. Secondly, environmental value and how we evaluate things like the ecosystem. And finally, we can talk about how we can put a price on thoughts, feelings, and emotions in society. So first, let's talk about one of the things they wanted to say was that there was a way we can evaluate public goods and cultural goods by giving them public value. Basically, he was trying to argue that things such as beaches and banks and public services have a public value, so we can't put a price on them. However, we can see this is clearly false. We use taxpayer dollars to pay for beaches and banks and libraries and public goods. If we didn't have the money coming from the citizens, we wouldn't have these things to begin with. So public value comes from commercial value. A beach in one city is probably worth more or less than a beach in another city. It all depends on how much money we put into it, how much cultural good and cultural benefit and utility we get from that good. So here we see that clearly there's a link between commercial value and public goods and public value. Since I've shown that public value is based off commercial value, you have to see that his argument basically false. So when we look at things such as public goods, we see that all the way that it is in existence is because we pay for it. In fact, Disney World's water bill is paid for a great portion of by Florida citizens. If the Florida citizens weren't paying through their tax dollars, millions of children wouldn't get utility out of going to Disney World each year because they wouldn't pay for their water bill. So that being said, we can see why his first basic counter argument to commercial value falls. Secondly, he talked about economic value or ecological value and how things such as the environment have value that we can't put money on. However, we can definitely put money on the environment. In fact, recently, a dictator in a small section of Brazil was holding parts of the rainforest for ransom. He was saying that if Americans didn't pay him millions of dollars, he was going to go into the rainforest and bulldoze them and give the things that he took out of the rainforest to companies for financials. So we can see through this example that we can't put a price on natural resources. Since natural resources are oftentimes getting more and more out of our grasp to use, they're extremely valuable. They're very rare. So all these things that are used environmentally and ecologically have a commercial value. So through this example, we can also see why there's definitely commercial value in things coming from the environment. Finally, I want to talk about how things such as thoughts, feelings, and emotions have a commercial value. Now, while it may seem sad or a little upsetting, you can definitely put a price on emotions. This is basically how holidays are so big in America. Things such as Valentine's Day and Christmas are pretty much all based off of how much joy you get from it. The holidays are a huge spending time for Americans. This is obvious just if you turn on any sort of media, TV or internet during the holidays, all you see are things about Christmas and what you need to buy for your family. If we didn't get such joy and utility from doing holiday-related events, the holidays would have no reason to use all this publicity and take all of our money. Clearly, having joy and having happiness during the holidays has a value. It's based on how much we spend during the holidays, and we're told this and we're socialized to do this. So even if you think things like love and happiness don't have a value, they certainly do. People pay hundreds and thousands of dollars each year buying books and accessories and all sort of things to make themselves better, to fall in love with somebody, hoping they'll attract the right person. By spending all this money in order to find a mate, we see that clearly thoughts, feelings, emotions, love, hate, everything has a price tag on it. So overall, what we're arguing on our side is that everything has commercial value. Money makes the world go round. While this may seem really sad and unbeneficial, as the affirmative team would prove, it's just the cold hard truth. Everything has a commercial value, and we can evaluate cultural goods based off of it. And I proved through all the things that I've said today, the cultural goods, first through things like public goods, such as beaches, banks, secondly through economic goods, and finally through emotional goods, that we can put a price tag on them and we can value them in this way. We can say, oh, this thing gives us usually a lot of utility, therefore it's worth this amount of money. That's basically the only way we can ever define anything. It's just the way human nature is. We base how much something is worth based off of how much money we would pay for it. And this is why I see no other vote but the one for negation of the resolution.